Good morning, or rather good afternoon, folks out there in Facebook and YouTube. It's your boy Mark Calhoun, and I'm back. This is the CareSouth Carolina Community Live Podcast. And again, I'm Mark Calhoun, the Director of Social and Community Services, with my partner in crime always.
Hey, this is Daniel Myers. Glad to be back. I'm the MAT SUD Program Director for CareSouth Carolina. And once again, I'm glad to be back and glad to have the guests that we have on today. You guys are in for a treat. Just hold on to your seats because we're about to take you for a ride. You better believe that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, like you said, we have a special guest today, Mr. Lui Delgado. And here on this show, Mr. Delgado, we don't like to do all the talking.
All right.
We like the guests to introduce themselves because they know themselves better than we know you.
Perfect. I can do that. You want me to do it now? I'm ready.
Yes, sir. Yeah, just give us your introduction, who you are, tell us about yourself, and then you get started whenever you want to, sir.
All right, perfect. All right, so my name is Luis Delgado, aka the Dope Doctor. If you can go on social media, it's at the Dope Doctor. Now, the reason I use that title is because I am in long-term recovery myself. I got 32 years of long-term recovery, and I was been in radio since 1999, and so had the Couch Live radio show since 1999, and so it's been fun to do this whole 21 years. And so on radio, and when you're Mexican like me, I'm Mexican Puerto Rican, you have nicknames, and so the nickname is the Dope Doctor. So it's the Street Certified Dope Doctor as a whole nickname because I received my certification on the street, and so I took it to the professional world to help other people get clean and sober. I'm a certified addictions professional. I help people in private practice for over 25 years. I've owned treatment centers. Now I do a lot more consulting and speaking. And then today I'm speaking for Alchemies because when I was on the radio talking about this product that we're about to talk about today, they approached me. I was real adamant about how I felt about this product. I was adamant about how I was kind of upset about how people didn't know about it. There was no street value attached to it, and I'm going to explain why in a little bit. And so that upset me a little bit. So I was on the radio just, spouting off all about it. And then so they approached me and asked me if I would do this professionally for them. And so I've been doing that for about 10 years now, speaking for Alchemies all over the mostly the Southeast, but all around the country. So I've been up here before. I'm happy to be back up here in Lata, South Carolina. Yeah. I hope I said it right because I want to say Lata, but I was told by someone from South Carolina to say Lata. Right. So is that the way you say it?
Lata, that's right. Lata.
Perfect. So I'm very happy to be here. Under cold conditions, by the way, for a Floridian, this is pretty cold. But I'm happy to be here. So I'm going to go through a slide deck today. I am paid by Alchemies to speak today about Vivitrol. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Hopefully you can see the screen. Can everybody see the screen all right?
Yeah, we good.
Perfect. All right. So I'm going to go through it. So here's the most important part about talking about today is that when people struggle with substance use disorder, when you're struggling with opiate use disorder, and alcohol use disorder, anything like that, typically when there's addiction in the home, you start talking to people, right? You start talking to your friends, you start talking to family members, you might even start sharing it on Facebook and saying, I'm going through this. And so you get all kinds of opinions. And when you get all kinds of opinions, you might get the wrong opinions. And so first of all, it's important to know that you should talk to a healthcare professional about what's happening because only a healthcare professional can be objective in the situation. Your friends may want to be very objective and protect you and say things that maybe they shouldn't say or give you recommendations that maybe work for them or their family members, but it may not work in your situation. And a healthcare professional is going to tell you all about the negatives, the positives, the side effects that can occur, and the options really available out there. And that's why that's important. So we're going to talk today about one of those options if you are suffering from opiate use disorder or from alcohol dependence. We're going to talk about some of those options for you. We're going to talk about the brain dependence. We're going to talk about Vivitrol, which is the medication we're talking about today. The safety information, because that's always important to be full disclosure, the efficacy, the safety of it, the dosage and administration, how it's taken, and most importantly, how you can be a resource for anyone suffering with this problem. And then at the end, we're going to take some questions. And if you have any questions, we'll talk about it. We're going to have a full open discussion about it afterwards. And those things that I can answer, I will most definitely answer. And those things that I can't, we'll try to find the answers for you. So first of all, there are some risk factors to addiction, right? 40 to 60% of addiction vulnerability comes from genetic and environmental factors. What's important to talk about that is because there's a lot of stigma attached to addiction. A lot of people want to, they're hurting and they already feel horrible about themselves. Their self-esteem is destroyed. And so they start feeling it's because I'm stupid or it's because I'm a bad person. No, listen to that. 40 to 60% comes from genetic and environmental factors, which means we're already carrying. Now, that doesn't mean that just because you have the genetics, it's going to happen to you, but it just means that you're more predisposed. And so you should take precaution. Now, 80% of heroin users previously misused pain prescription relievers. What does that mean? Basically, so if you've ever had a discussion of gateway drugs, and most people have had the discussion of gateway drugs, it's important to note that actual legal medications like pain pills have been considered gateway drugs now because you see here 80% of heroin users previously misused legal prescription pills. So if you or your family members are ever going to use pain prescription pills, it's important to understand the danger of becoming dependent to that and understand how to correctly use them, and don't use them inappropriately or wrong, because if you do, you may be a person that we may need to help in the future. In 2016, 10.6 million adults reported misusing pain prescription relievers in the past year. And the important thing about that number is to note that's a really big number. But the other important thing is that number is not even nearly the right number, because many people are never diagnosed, they never see a medical professional, and they're never counted or misdiagnosed. So let's talk about how opiates affect the brain, how addiction affects the brain, because addiction is a chronic relapsing brain disease, a chronic relapsing brain disease. We don't fight this as much anymore. Now, I know some of you want to fight it, some of you want to argue about it, but that's real back in the day. Don't do that. Don't argue whether it's a chronic relapsing brain disease. Yes, it's this disease, that disease, and all those things that you think it is, but it's much more. It's a chronic relapsing brain disease, and the reason I say that is because people just can't quit. They don't just quit just because you're a good counselor or you're a good therapist or they heard me on the radio or they heard you talk about it. It takes much more than that. People with addiction can't simply just stop just because there's a lot of conditions placed upon them. It doesn't matter if we're on probation. It doesn't matter if we're on parole. It doesn't matter if you threaten divorce. What really matters is to look into an individual's issues that are happening, what is triggering some of that use, and deal with it. So it's most patients need ongoing care and a lot of support. And so that's why there are companies like Alchemies out there that develop products to help us along the way. So if we're going to talk about addiction, we're going to talk about psychology, we've got to talk about the human brain, right? So you have the cortex area and we have the limbic system, two very important parts of the brain when we're talking about addiction. First of all, as a counselor, I play in the cortex area, especially the frontal cortex area. That's where the decision-making, thinking, reasoning, learning, listening, that's where all that's happening, right? So that's when you're having conversations and you're trying to be very rational. We know addiction, the disease of addiction is not a very rational disease, but that's where we're trying to be rational. We try to explain the situation, right? We try to have dialogue. You talk about, hey, try to play the whole tape out. What happened last time you used? And you never have these great conversations with the client. That's fantastic, but that's just the cortex area. In the limbic system, addiction also lives there. And in the limbic system, that's where the basic drives, urges, the reward center, the pleasure center, that's where all that exists. Now, here's the issue with that. That's the oldest part of the brain. That's the lizard brain. That's the part of the brain that if it's effective in a negative way, and even in the frontal cortex and in the cortex area, you've been doing healthy things. You're thinking right. You have a sponsor. You've been doing the step work. You've been doing everything correct. You're going to counseling. And then 6 months later, you take a left turn instead of a right turn, and you're all drunk and high again, and then you feel horrible about yourself. Well, just maybe, there's some issue within that limbic system that can use some attention. So even though you've been doing great work in that cortex area, if that limbic system is hurting, that is where your instincts lie. And so it's like fight or flight instinct. Like you ever go up to a lizard and you see a lizard that doesn't have a tail? Well, that happened because here is a lizard, and there's a guy like me, literally when I was a kid, and I go up to the lizard, and the lizard didn't run. Well, the lizard didn't run, he lost his tail. Now, some lizards, you walk up to them, and as soon as you get closer, they run. They just leave. Now, one lizard's not dumb, one lizard's not smart. It's some basic drives, some basic urges, some basic instincts, and that is what lies within the limbic system. And so if you're an individual that has some basic instincts that may hurt you or may harm you along the process, it's going to require some help and some treatment with that. And that's why we have to address it. So let's go into that part of the brain. Let's go talk a little bit more about how the brain functions. Now, I'm going to use some words, but because of Alchemies, because this is an FDA-approved slide deck, I have to say some of these words. However, I'm also going to use some other words that hopefully are more understandable, especially if you're dealing with clients and especially if you're dealing with someone that's actually suffering from it. You don't want to use terminology that separates you. You want to come to an understanding, because at the end of the day, we're just trying to get an understanding, right? All right. So we all have neurotransmitters. We all have opiate receptor sites. So what is an opiate receptor site? It's that part of the brain that sits there waiting for an opiate to come so that it can do what opiates are supposed to do. What do opiates do? Typically, they relieve pain, right? But it does some other things, and most of you have taken an opiate before, like a real stronger pain pill. So we're talking about hydrocodone, oxycodone, Vicodin, anything like if you've ever gotten surgery or you left the doctor's office after a surgery, they give you pain pills to deal with that pain. So we all have opiate receptor sites, all of us. Not just addicts and not just bad people. Everybody has opiate receptor sites. So here's the opiate receptor site. Now, in this slide, you see the blue dots. Those blue dots are endogenous opioids. What's an endogenous opioid? An endogenous opioid is natural opioids that all of us have. So we all have natural opioids, and we all have natural opiate receptor sites. And our natural opioids go into those natural opiate receptor sites and give us a normal stimulation of dopamine reward. What does that feel like? That just feels good. You pet a puppy, it feels good. That's just the way it works. But when you drink alcohol, what alcohol does, it grabs all your natural endogenous opioids, meaning your natural opioids, and it floods those opiate receptor sites. So it takes your stuff, your own stuff, and it floods those opiate receptor sites, and it creates this increased stimulation of dopamine reward. What does that feel like? Good. That's what it feels like. It feels good. And when something feels good, we tend to do more of it, not less. So how does it work when you take an opioid? Well, again, opioid receptor site, your natural opioids, your endogenous opioids still find a home, but now you took an outside opioid, which is what? Exogenous opioid from outside the body. That's heroin, pain pills, anything like that. Now, your brain doesn't know whether you took it because you were prescribed it or you took it just because you wanted to. It doesn't care. This part of the brain only deals with what is the reality, which is here's an exogenous opioid like heroin, and it goes into that opiate receptor site, and it creates this excessive stimulation of dopamine reward. What does that feel like? Good. Doesn't care that you didn't want to take it. Doesn't care that you don't really like it. Your brain likes it, feels really good because you've had this excessive stimulation of dopamine reward. Therefore, when something feels good, what do we tend to do? Yep. We tend to take it again. Now, what happens if it stops working the way you wanted it to work? You take a little bit more. You take a little bit more. Tolerance exists. Many of you listening to this or watching this right now have experienced tolerance. 2 used to work, now you take 4. 4 used to work, now you have to take 8. How do you see this with our client base, with people that have suffered addiction? Here's a hint. If you've ever worked in the treatment center and you've ever had a client come up to you and has said, I have a headache, and if you ever try to give that client 2 Tylenol, you'll see this face. No, I need 4. And you say, why do you need 4 Tylenol, Louis? And he'll say, well, because I've suffered extra hard headaches since I was like 10. You can even call my mom. I have like super headaches. So mine are not normal. Well, many of us tend to believe that we've had a natural tolerance to certain things. And then some of us also develop the tolerance. So when something stops working at the level that we, that we want, and we don't get that feeling that we're looking for or that relief we're looking for, we ask for more. Or the doctor prescribes us more, or they tell us, go ahead and take another one. It's not going to do any harm. And a lot of times dependence happens slowly over time, where you kept doing that just a little bit more, to the point where now you become dependent on it. And anybody can become dependent on something. And there's a difference between physical dependence or physiological dependence and psychological dependence. Psychological dependence is what we refer to as addiction, and physical dependence is different. And we need to be able to separate those two. All right, so medicinal treatment is appropriate for everybody. Okay, that's really important to understand. Medicinal treatment is appropriate for everybody. So here's how that looks. Now I've been treating people, since 1991? And early in 91, those early 90s, especially if you're out there and you were one of my clients, you are familiar with this. So I was walking around like Barney Fife. You know what Barney Fife is? If you don't know what Barney Fife is, Google it, you'll figure it out. But those guys are old enough to know who Barney Fife was. And the reason I say that is because Barney Fife, he had a belt, right? Like a cop belt, but he only had one gun and he had one little bullet. And that's all he had. So if you came to me early in the early 90s and you said, Louis, I have an alcohol problem, I pulled out my Barney Fife 1 gun and I pulled out my Barney Fife 1 bullet and I aimed it at you and I said, don't drink, go to meetings. And that's all I had. That's it. That's the treatment plan. Don't drink, go to meetings. If you get better, it's because you did what I said to do. If you didn't, it's because you drank or you didn't go to meetings. That was what I blamed you with. Now, you come to me with a drug problem, I take out that same gun. I take out that same bullet. I say, don't drink, go to the other meeting. And that's really all I had. I didn't have anything else. A lot of us would just glorify 12-step programs. That's really all we were in those early days. So what I like about this slide from NIDA, National Institute on Drug Abuse, is it encourages us to think broader, to treat people more as individuals and start looking at those individual complexities. Many of us have suffered trauma. Many of us have suffered other issues that need to be addressed. And if those issues aren't addressed, they become issues along the way of having a healthy sobriety, having full remission from addiction. And yes, remission is possible. So now let's talk about some of those options that we now have, because I don't walk around like Barney Fife anymore. Now I have now our belts are a little bit more full. Here's an example of how some of those belts are a little bit more full. We now have medication-assisted treatment. Medication-assisted treatment. That's interesting. So a lot of people don't tend to understand or know enough about medication-assisted treatment. All right. Let me see. Should I take this off? Let me see. Sound better? You find out if this sound is better. I'm hearing that the sound is not very good. All right. If we could find out if that sound is better, I could always take that off and see if that works. All right. So medication-assisted treatment is one of these new things that we have. New tools, right? So like when we see a police officer now, he doesn't just have the Barney Fife one gun. He has more options to him, right? Or him or her. So medication-assisted treatment consists of 3 different types of therapy: agonist therapy, partial agonist therapy, and antagonist therapy. So I'm going to give you a little explanation. First, agonist. What's an agonist? An agonist is anything that goes into a receptor and makes the receptor do what the receptor is supposed to do. So in this case, we're talking about an opiate receptor. So what it will do is make the opiate receptor respond the way an opiate receptor is supposed to respond. Now, there's some other things that we don't want in there, but that's basically the gist of it. So what is an agonist? Well, heroin is an agonist, but we don't use it as therapy. So we're not talking about heroin. We talk about agonist therapy. Pain pills, those are also agonists, like hydrocodone, Vicodin, oxycodone. Those are agonists, but we don't use those therapeutically to help somebody get clean and sober off of opioids. So therefore, that's not what we're talking about either. Methadone is also an agonist, and we do use methadone therapeutically. So when we're talking about agonist therapy, we're talking about methadone. Partial agonist therapy, not quite all the way an agonist, but also not quite not an agonist. So it's like a 50-50 mix, right? What are the partial agonists? What are we talking about when we talk partial agonists? All the buprenorphine family. So you're talking about Subutex, Subsolve, Suboxone, things like that. That's the partial agonist family, the buprenorphines. What about antagonist therapy? Well, antagonist therapy antagonizes the receptor site, completely opposite than an agonist. So it's not even an agonist at all. What is antagonist therapy? That we're talking about like Rivia, so we're talking about oral naltrexone, and we're talking about injectable form of naltrexone like Vivitrol. And Vivitrol is the one that had me speak today. So that's who we're talking about, Vivitrol. So now let's break all 3 of these down. So when we talk about binding to the receptor site is the one that goes, feed me, Steve Moore, feed me. That's another movie reference, by the way. So Google it if you don't know it. So the receptor site, the opiate receptor site, they feed me. Well, agonist therapy going to go there and feed it? Yeah, agonist therapy is going to go. It's an agonist. That's where agonists go. They go to that receptor site. So at least we know that if we treat somebody with methadone or with an agonist therapy, it's going to go there. What about activating the opiate receptor site to release dopamine? Remember when I said that good feeling? Unfortunately, it's an agonist. That's what agonists do. Agonist is going to cause the opiate receptor to release dopamine. So even though the individual may not be taking it to feel that kind of pleasure or taking it to get high, unfortunately, there is a good feeling attached to it. Now, pause for a second. Now, the rooms, hopefully you know what I mean when I say that, the rooms have no opinions on outside issues, but individuals in those rooms sometimes do. And unfortunately, those people in those rooms sometimes want to say that our clients aren't clean or they're still getting high because they're on methadone. They're taking an agonist therapy. Well, we need to be respectful of that and understand that everybody's sobriety is different. Everybody has a different pathway to recover, even though it may not be the same pathway that you chose. So you shouldn't tell anybody that. But what they're talking about, and if you choose to use methadone as your course of action, just understand, or use it with your client, just understand that since it releases dopamine and creates that good feeling, this is the part of the judgment that we need to help our clients understand. This is what they're talking about. This is why they say that you're still getting high again. Not that you are, but because of that release of dopamine is probably what they're talking about. What about administration and setting? Well, the administration for agonist therapy is daily oral concentration. Typically, you go to the methadone clinic. You have to have an OTP license. You go there, you stand in line, pay your money, and you get your methadone. That's typically how it works. No take home, nothing like that. You go there, you get it every day, and you go about your day, you go about your business. What about DEA schedule? Well, it's Schedule 2 controlled substance. Can you find methadone on the street? Yep. Even though it's a Schedule 2 controlled substance, you can find it on the street. It does have street value. There are people out there that may try to help you bridge from one use of heroin to another bridge of heroin or some other opiate by trying to sell you some of that. So just understand that if you're going to use agonist therapy, go to the correct place to get it. And please don't try to take it home with you. Do it while you're there. Go home. All right. Requires opioid detox? No. Agonist therapy does not require detox. Why? Because we actually use agonist therapy in detox. Agonist therapy is also not just methadone, and agonist therapy is not just medication-assisted treatment. It's also opioid replacement therapy. So it actually has two uses. And because it's an opioid replacement therapy, it's actually used in detox environments to help people wean off of an opiate, an outside opiate, or something like that. Or really the only way you need to use it or can use it is after you're already in withdrawal, and we can use it. All right, requires counseling? Yes, should require counseling. Any of you that have ever opened up a methadone clinic and you don't require counseling, shame on you. So you should always require counseling, and all the ones that I know that use methadone in their treatment practice require counseling as well. So there are no magic medications out there. You should always use counseling for all the other stuff that happens to a person that suffers this. What about partial agonist therapy? All right, partial agonist therapy, the buprenorphine family, the half and halfers. All right, binds to the opiate receptor site. Yep. Feed me, Seymour? Fed. So we know we can use partial agonist therapy therapeutically to help somebody with opioid dependence because it binds to the opiate receptor site. Does it activate the opiate receptor site to release dopamine? That good feeling. Yes. Now, not to the extent as the full agonist, not to the extent of heroin, not to the extent of pain pills, not even to the same extent as methadone, but partially. And it does partially create that good feeling because of the release of dopamine. So again, time out. The rooms have no opinions on outside issues, but individuals do. So if you're going to prescribe buprenorphine to your client, or if you yourself are going to take buprenorphine, understand that this is the part that may cause some judgment for people to say you're not clean when you are, that you're not fully doing the right thing when you are. So just you probably don't want to go into meetings and tell people that you're actually on this for that reason alone, because they're thinking about that because the opiate receptor is activated and you're getting that good feeling that you must not be serious about your program, even when you are. All right, so administration and setting. The administration and setting is pretty much as a daily sublingual. That's the most normal way that people take like Suboxone or Subutex or something like that. They take it. You got to make like 60 good decisions in 30 days or 30 good decisions in 30 days because it's a take home. You go to the doctor's office, you get your prescription, you fill your prescription, you take it home. Somebody may hold it for you and hide it from you, but many people have it in their own hands and they take it at certain times of the day, or they cut them up and try to figure out how many milligrams and all that stuff. You get a therapeutic value and you do. That's the way it's done typically. Now, time out for a second there. There is an issue of this. We counsel people for codependency all the time, family members for codependency all the time. And there is something that we need to understand, that when you're going to counsel a family with codependency issues, and you're going to talk to a husband or a wife about, you have to stop being codependent, they have to learn on their own, blah, blah, blah. You start doing all this stuff, right? And then we discharge them, and then we give them this medication, a partial agonist therapy, and we say, you hold on to it for them. Now, you just put the family member in a situation to be codependent when you really didn't want to do that, right? So just this form of therapy, unfortunately, puts a lot of families in the position of wanting to control it when that's something that you guys have to decide on your own. Please deal with that therapeutically within that own family. But it's a matter of discussion because of the administration and the setting of the medication. And now there's other options where implants or things like that. So you may want to think about all of that when doing this type of medication. Now, DEA schedule. It's a Schedule 3 controlled substance. Schedule 3 controlled substance by the FDA. Can you find it on the street? Yep, you can find it on the street. Unfortunately, it has street value. There's a good feeling attached to it. There's a lot of dealers out there that do have it. There's people that have sold it, so it's generating around. People that didn't take theirs, so they sold it to use to bridge from one use to the next, or whatever reason. So you can't find it on the street. Please, again, if you're going to take this product, take it from a legal physician or prescriber, and take it as prescribed. Does it require opioid detox? No, it does not require opioid detox. Why? Because it's a partial agonist. And again, the only way to take a partial agonist is after you're in withdrawals. So all you have to do is be in withdrawals to take it. So it does not require detox. And the other thing about it is that this one also is considered an opioid replacement therapy. Yes, it's medication-assisted treatment. We use it as that. but it's also used as opioid replacement therapy. So depending on how you're using it is the deal here. So it does not require detox. Does it require counseling? Yes. Again, there's no magic medication. Nobody should open up and say, I'm a Suboxone doctor, and just prescribe Suboxone and never talk about counseling or anything. There's a lot more to go into recovery than just, not craving an opiate physiologically. So anyway, antagonist therapy is the next form. Antagonist therapy. So here you have part of the brain. Does it bind to the opiate receptor? That part of the brain is going, feed me, Seymour, feed me. Yes, antagonist therapy goes there. Vivitrol goes there. Oral naltrexone goes there. Because it goes there, it can be used to treat opioid dependence. What about activating the mu-opiate receptor site? No, does not activate the mu-opiate receptor site. There's no good feeling because there's no activation. It antagonizes that receptor, sits on that receptor, but does not do what the others do, because this one is not also used as opioid replacement therapy. So now we go down to the detox administration and setting. It's not used as opioid replacement therapy. This medication is only used as a recovery medication. Very big difference here. The administration is at the doctor's office. You only get it at the healthcare professional's office. They give you an injection and you go home. There's no take home. Remember that codependency thing I talked about? Remember there's families that do hide stuff or have to lock it up. You don't have to lock it up because you don't get any to go home. The setting is not your home. The setting is actually at the doctor's office, just like if you're getting some flu shot or something like that. There's no take-home flu shot that I know about. You go, you get it, and you go home. That's the way this is done. And so the DEA schedule is not scheduled. It's not scheduled by the DEA. Can you find it on the street? No. There's no drug dealers walking around with Vivitrol. I have yet to meet a drug dealer that has it on the street. It's not even scheduled by the DEA. Why isn't it found on the street? I'll tell you why. Because it can't get a fly high. That's another reference. It's not an alchemy's approved statement. That's actually a movie reference. It's Cheech and Chong. You don't even have to Google that one. I will tell you which that one is. All right. Because there's no high attached to it. There's no good feeling attached to it. Remember, it's not creating that release of dopamine, so there's no good feeling attached to it whatsoever. It's just there. It's just doing its job. But you don't feel it doing its job. It's like, how vitamins, how you take vitamins. It took my wife 7 years to get me to take a vitamin. Why? Because I would take a vitamin. All I'm doing is spending all this money on vitamins, and all it's doing is changing my urine to a different color. That's all it did. It didn't make me feel any different. If I would have took a vitamin and it would have felt like I just took a Monster energy drink, I would have been taking my vitamins, but that's not what happened. I just took my vitamins and I was like, what am I supposed to feel now? Nothing. And it's real hard for anyone with addiction to think that anything that I don't feel is actually working. It's hard for us to believe that, because when we want to wake up, we know what to take to get up. When we want to go down, we know what to take to go down. When we're feeling a little anxious, we know what to take when we're feeling anxious. When we can't get sleep, we know what to take when we can't get sleep. So now you're telling me something that I don't even feel is working? It's very difficult. So it's going to take a conversation for people to truly understand antagonist therapy, and more importantly, Vivitrol, because they're coming to your office, they're getting the injection. It's not scheduled by the DEA. There's no drug dealers that are ever talking about it. That's why it has no street value. That's why they're not getting educated on the street about it. You're the only one that's educating them about it. Or if they're watching this or listening to this, is the only way they're going to get any information about this medication, because it doesn't suit anyone's interest on the street to tell you about it, because it's a recovery medication. And that's not what the street does. All right. Does it require opioid detox? Yes. This is different. We have to understand that for this medication, you have to have already gone through detox. Why? Because this medication is only medication-assisted treatment. It's only for treatment purposes. It's never used as opioid replacement therapy because it's not an opioid. It's not a full opioid. It's not a partial opioid. It's a non-opioid. It's an antagonist. And therefore, you have to go through full detox. And I'm going to explain a little bit later how that works for people to get on Vivitrol. This challenges us to set up a program to help the client. What about requiring counseling? Yes, it requires counseling. Everything should require counseling so that we can deal with the addiction at hand. Now, I spent a lot of time on that slide for a reason. I spent a lot of time on that slide because that slide has so much information on it that's actually vital and critical and crucial for us understanding the differences so that we can make a proper decision on what medication for our life, or at least understand that if you prescribe any of those medications to your clients or with your clients, that we can use all three very therapeutically, and we can help our clients with all three therapeutically, to all different pathways to recovery, and they're all part of the medication-assisted treatment model. Now, recovery is a lifelong journey. It sometimes can be a long, brutal journey, but sometimes it can be a very pleasant journey. It's a very eye-opening journey for sure. And there is need for continued support, psychosocial support, family and peer support, meetings, discussions, all that stuff that we do. Most importantly, on this slide, what you'll see is when relapse occurs, it should signal a need for treatment to be reinstated or adjusted. What do I mean by that? Well, Unfortunately, we say it's a disease, we say we understand it as a disease, but then we don't treat it like one. A person goes to treatment twice before, and then they get told, you relapsed again, we got to send you back to treatment. They go, oh, no, not again. No, I'm not going to go to treatment again. I know what those groups are like. I know what the counselor's like. As a matter of fact, I can counsel that group. You can put a group around me. I know exactly what to say and how to help everybody. I know what I need to do. I just need to do it. And then if you're not thinking clearly, you're going to go like, yep, yes, you do. No, you don't. This is a disease. And with the disease, there's sometimes it's in remission, and sometimes it comes back out of remission. And when it comes back out of remission, what you have to understand is that we can treat this again and you can survive it again. Here's what I mean by that. When we have cancer and cancer comes back, let's say you go into remission and cancer comes back, you can go back to treatment and get rid of cancer again. You could survive it again. The whole family surrounds you as a loved one and goes, you strong, we're going to beat it again. You're going to survive it again. And you beat it. But when the person relapses off a drug addiction, they don't feel like they ever beat it. They go, oh, nothing has ever worked. No, it did work. Even if it was just for 24 hours, it worked. We just need to go back to what's working and do more of it. All right. That's why counseling is so important. With a counselor is going to help explain all the things that you're doing that are positive and that are helping beat the situation. They're going to talk about your motivation for change. They're going to talk about rewarding and constructing activities. They're going to help you with incentives for abstinence and how to build those incentives into your lifestyle. They're going to talk about a relapse prevention plan and how to organize and structure a relapse prevention plan and actually make it happen. Help you with your problem solving skills, your life skills, all those things that might have been destroyed by years and years of use. And most importantly, help you facilitate better interpersonal relationships, because it's hard to love or be kind to other people when you're no longer loving yourself or being kind to yourself. And counseling is going to help. So please don't ignore that. Now let's talk about Vivitrol. It's indicated for alcohol dependence since 2006. 2006. That's a long time. I'm sure a lot of you know somebody who has suffered with alcohol dependence that's never even heard of Vivitrol. And yet it's been indicated since 2006 to help people with alcohol dependence. That's a shame, because there's a lot of people out there that when I talk about Vivitrol with them, they'll say, oh, is that the medication that when I drink alcohol, I'll get sick? They know about that medication, but they don't know about this one. And it's been out there since 2006. So that's shame on us as a recovery community, and shame on us as a treatment community for not educating every person that comes in with dependence issues to know that this medication exists since 2006 to help them. It's indicated for opioid dependence since 2010. 2010. Now I want you to think about that for a second. I want you to think about all the people that you've treated for the last 10 years, or all the people that you've known that have suffered opioid dependence for the last 10 years. And I want you to especially think about the ones that have said this to you. I've done everything. Nothing works. I've tried everything. I've been to every treatment program. I've been in and out of rooms. I've been in and out of meetings forever. Nothing works. I don't know what's going on. Nothing works. And then you say the word Vivitrol and they go, what is that? What is that? Well, someone that passed away. Someone that passed away and they died thinking they've tried everything. Did they? Did they? And so that's the thing. That's why I like talking to healthcare professionals and talking to people about this medication, because I think that everybody should at least know about it. I'm not saying that it's for everybody, but shouldn't everybody at least know that it exists? How many grandparents know what methadone is? How many grandparents know what Suboxone is? But not even our identified clients know what Vivitrol is. So forget the parents knowing or the grandparents knowing. They don't know. And this is why we have to talk about it. Number 2 right there, that second bullet point says it's for the prevention of relapse to opioid dependence following opioid detox. It's for the prevention of relapse to opioid dependence following opioid detox. How many other medications on the market are actually for that? 0. Naltrexone, Vivitrol is the only medication on the market for the prevention of relapse to opioid dependence following detox. So how many of our clients are actually suffering with opioid dependence issues? And how many people stayed on the street a little bit longer than they should have because of that dependence issue? And yet the only medication that's indicated by the FDA for that treatment is sometimes not even mentioned to them. They don't even know about it. Just want you to think about that for a second, because I want you to think about it to the point that that's how important I think it is for you to have a conversation with every person that's alcohol dependent, opioid dependent, any dependent, for them to know. Because just because they're not dependent to this stuff today doesn't mean they're not going to be dependent to this stuff tomorrow. And Vivitrol should always be part of a comprehensive management program. They didn't come into my program and said, hey, Louis, we want you to change everything about what you do. No, it was a complement to what we already did. And so Vivitrol can be a complement to what you already do in your recovery. It can be a complement to what you already do in your programming. They're not asking you to change that. It's part of your program. So let's talk about contraindications. What are contraindications? Contraindications are those things that if you prescribe this and you prescribe this with it, they don't work well together, and maybe it can harm you as a person that's taking the medication. So here's the list of contraindications that you cannot take with Vivitrol. You ready? I want you to be ready. You might want to take a pen and paper out. You might want to write this down. So here's the list of contraindications to prescribing Vivitrol. Opioids and tramadol. Got it? Long list, right? You cannot prescribe opiates with Vivitrol or tramadol with Vivitrol. That's it. So here's the good news about that. The good news about that is a lot of individuals suffer psychological issues as well, psychiatric issues as well. So if we send them to the psychiatrist and the psychiatrist is going to prescribe them something, at least we know that if they're on Vivitrol, the psychiatrist is not going to prescribe them something that's contraindicating. As long as they don't prescribe tramadol or opioids, we're fine. That's not a contraindication. We may not always like what they prescribe, but at least it's not a contraindication. What about the medical doctor? If they have Hep C, if they have HIV, if they have heart disease, if they have cholesterol issues, whatever. That general practice doctor also is not going to prescribe them anything that's going to contraindicate as long as they don't prescribe an opiate or tramadol. That's great news. That means they can continue to see the other physicians, and as long as the client knows you just can't take opioids or tramadol when you're taking this, we're good to go. Now, they can't be still in physiological dependence because remember, this is a recovery medication. This is not an opioid replacement therapy, so you have to already have gone through detox. You can't still be physiologically in withdrawal. You can't have failed an naloxone challenge. What's a naloxone challenge? Well, sometimes people use naloxone challenges to test the truth or validity of what they're hearing. In this business, we do get lied to a living sometimes. We get lied to for a living. And so when individuals come in, they test, let's say they test negative. Let's say I'm your client and I test negative. I test positive for an opioid, but I tell you, wait, I don't care what the test says. I don't care what that drug test says. I didn't use heroin. I didn't use opioids. I'm clean this time now. I might have been lying last time. And last time, yes, I was lying while I was in the program. And yes, I was using opiates, but not this time. Trust me, I would tell you. I wouldn't tell that therapist because I don't like that therapist, but I like you. You're my favorite therapist. And I would never tell you a lie. And then you do a naloxone challenge test, and what happens? Physiological withdrawal comes in right away, right? Because it's precipitated withdrawal. So naloxone challenges are used to test that. It's to protect us from lying to ourselves. It's to protect us from hurting ourselves. Look, you want to make sure that your client's not using. So you want to have these conversations with clients. You want to let them know, look, if we do this, you're going to go in precipitated withdrawal. So you got to be off of opiates for 7 to 10 days at least. And if we're talking about something like methadone or buprenorphine, we got to be off for at least 2 weeks. And then we'll do the Vivitrol. So that's why naloxone tests are used sometimes. And then hypersensitivity, the person might have an allergic reaction. If the person has an allergic reaction, you just don't use Vivitrol again. You don't know what a person's allergic to until you do something, right? There was a lady one time in one of these meetings, I'm allergic to salmon. And I asked the stupidest question you could ever ask a person that says, I'm allergic to salmon. I said, how do you know? Yeah, that's what she said. She was like, because I tried salmon. Made sense. All right. So let's talk about some other safety information. Vulnerability to opioid overdose. All right. So we already have these conversations, hopefully, in treatment programs, right? We tell people, look, just because you can't be partying like a rock star doesn't mean you can leave partying like a rock star. Okay? Just understand that. But now, even more importantly, I like that Alchemies brings it up because now that Vivitrol's on board, I want to make sure people understand that you may not get the effect that you want if you go and try to challenge that. So you have Vivitrol on board, and then maybe you want to try to use an opioid to see if you can feel it or get it or whatever. You relapse. You may not feel what you're looking for. You may not get the exact feeling you're looking for. So please understand, though, that doesn't mean that you don't have the toxin in you. So stop. Because you don't have the toxin in you. It's not that you got bad heroin, bad dope, bad pills, anything like that. Vivitrol is doing its job. So stop, break away, come tell us that you used. Might also happen with alcohol. Remember, this is for alcohol dependence as well. So if you have Vivitrol on board and you drink alcohol, you may not get that feeling, that euphoric feeling you feel, that you want to feel. So you may not think, man, my tolerance is bigger. No. You're still probably DUI. You're still drinking. Stop. You still have a toxin inside you. Vivitrol's on board. That's why you're not getting all the effects that you're really looking for. Now, you don't go try to break that barrier on your own. If you go try to break that barrier on your own, it's dangerous. So don't do that. It's not that the barrier can't be broken. It can be broken in a medical area, in a doctor's office or hospital where they're able to perform CPR if things go bad, or they're able to monitor your breathing and heart rate. That's where it should be done. If you actually require surgery while you're already taking Vivitrol, they can handle it. They know how to break it. They know how to help you, even though you're on Vivitrol. But you should never do it on your own. So you want to make sure the clients understand that. You don't want to go accidentally overdose yourself thinking, I'm just going to keep using it until it breaks. Now, I don't want you to also think that addiction is, people use until they feel it and then they stop. And unfortunately, overdoses are a very bad part of our life today, especially with fentanyl out there. But addicts don't stop using just because they feel it, okay? addicts, there's no rhyme or reason to why an addict continues to use. All right. But if you think alcoholics stop drinking once they're drunk, or opiate dependent people stop using when they feel the effects of opioids, that's not true either. So I don't want to also falsely give you a false understanding of what an overdose is really like. Okay, so let's continue. What is Vivitrol? Little bullet points here. A once a month injectable form of naltrexone. Everybody gets the same 380 milligrams of naltrexone. I like this. Why do I like this? Because all you that practice medicine don't have to practice. You just do what the science and research already proved works. Just do what's been FDA approved. It's a once a month injectable form of naltrexone. Let me pause for a second, because when I say once a month, wow, you mean I don't have to think about it every day? I don't have to make 60 good decisions in 30 days? I don't even have to make 30 good decisions in 30 days. You mean I can't not use it today because I want to have a good weekend? I can't trade it, sell it, do anything? No. Once a month you make a good decision, you get the injection, now it's on board. Also, what is the greatest issue that a lot of dependent people have, a lot of addicts have, is daily obsession. Daily obsession. You know how often a person is thinking about getting high? They're thinking about getting high right after they just got high. I'll tell you why. Because as soon as you use your drug, you're on full, right? Like a gas, like when we put gas in a car. The only difference with the gas in a car is if the car sits in the parking lot, it stays full. Well, not when you use drugs. When you use something, as soon as you go full, it's already going to empty. So you could be having a good day. You could be going to work. You could be talking with your wife or playing with your children. You could be going to church. You could be in counseling. You could be in front of a judge. And all of a sudden, it goes red. What happens when it goes red? All of a sudden, it's different. Let me tell you why. Because right here, when it's like this, when it's on full, a toaster is a toaster. But when it's on red, a toaster's $5. And that's the difference. So when you have something that can actually be once a month, and you don't have to be obsessing every day, man, what am I going to use tomorrow? Do I have it? Did I lose it? Where is it? And stash it and hiding it. Because we use a lot of stash places. That is a really cool thing. And thank you, Alchemies, for coming up with a medication that also breaks the psychological part of the daily hustle and grind. All right. HCP prepared and administered. What does that mean? Healthcare professionals administer it and prepare it. No take home. You don't have to do it. Again, you're not making 30 or 60 good decisions in 30 days. Man, if you can make 30, 60 good decisions in 30 days, why are you in treatment anyway? No, it's administered at the healthcare professional. You go to the office, you get the injection, and then you go home. That means that codependent in your house doesn't have to give it to you and say, yes, you're allowed to have one. Yes, you're allowed to have one. No, none of that. There's no take home. Opioid antagonist, I think we covered that. It's an antagonist. It's not an agonist, not even a partial agonist. This is the only medication that is completely medication-assisted treatment, and it's not even a little bit opioid replacement therapy. It's non-addictive and non-narcotic. Whoa, non-addictive and non-narcotic. Well, all of us that have treated people all these years have gotten real good at explaining how we can use something addictive and can use something that's a narcotic to actually help you develop recovery and be in recovery. We've gotten really good at explaining that. We've gotten really good at using it. But this time, when a person goes, wait a minute, you want me to go from one addiction to another? You can just go, no, I don't. You can say, well, what about happens when I want to get off it? You just get off it. I mean, we'll talk about that as a treatment thing. You'll just get off it. No, I mean, but the withdrawals, what are the withdrawals going to feel like when I want to get off? Are the withdrawals worse off that than it is off of heroin? There's no withdrawals off of Vivitrol. So I'm not going to feel anything. I'm not going to feel, do I have to wean off, start getting like less of a shot? No, there's no weaning off. We'll talk as a treatment team. We'll talk about it. And when you're ready to get off, we'll get off. See, it's hard for them to understand. You're going to have to explain this. That's why I like to spend some time on this, because you're going to have to explain to your client and have them understand that when they get off of this, there's no, see, every other medication, not every other, many other medications, let's say that, many other medications, even things that are considerably harmless, you have to wean off of. Not Vivitrol. There's no weaning period at all. It's not addictive, non-narcotic. It's not associated with diversion. What is that? That's like a fancy word of saying no drug dealing going on. There's no drug dealer out here, not in South Carolina, not in Florida, not anywhere, that's carrying around Vivitrol. Matter of fact, a rep here in South Carolina doesn't even have it in his pocket. You're not going to find a drug dealer saying, I got a little Vivitrol for you. No, it's not associated with diversion. Nobody's taking half a shot and selling the rest of the shot later on. They can't even squeeze any out and try to, get high that weekend and just give a little out. No, not associated with any diversion whatsoever. That's it. Requires opioid detox for a minimum of 7 days prior to initiation. Yes, this is the challenge. This is what challenges us Mr. and Mrs. Professional. This is what challenges us to develop treatment programs that can help our clients get into recovery, because dependence is not permanent. Yes, addiction is, but the dependence part, the physical dependence part, is not permanent. It's not. So we just got to get them to that point. That 7 to 10 days, we can develop a program with structure, develop a program with support to help them get to that 7 to 10 days. That's challenging, I know, but it can be done. And that's our challenge to do, not just theirs. And when we get them there, then we can administer and get that medication on board. And then the dependence part is done. And then now all we fight for the rest of our life is our addiction. But we don't have to fight that physical dependence anymore. That's done. It's part of a comprehensive management program that includes psychosocial support. Yes, it's part of a plan, not the plan. It's part of the plan. Still the meeting, still the group, still everything else that you're recommending. We're not trying to change your program at all. So I think I covered everything that I must. And Vivitrol must be administered, by the way, must not be administered intravenously or subcutaneously. What do I like about that? You're not putting it in places where you might have used heroin. So it's not reminiscent of that. It's not deep digging into prior trauma. And just remember to look at all the prescribing information and directions of use so you can use it correctly. All right. Vivitrol is an antagonist and blocks reversibly the effects of opioids by competitively binding at opiate receptors. This is what Vivitrol does. Now watch it. There it is. There's a mu opiate receptor site. Remember we were showing that? Mu opiate receptor site, feed me Seymour, Vivitrol right there on board. Now what happens? The little blue dots, remember the dark blue dots? Those are your endogenous opioids, your natural opioids. Those are still finding a home, meaning they still create a normal stimulation of dopamine. What does that mean? If you pet the puppy, it feels good. That's it. Feels good. Not too good, just good. The gray ones, that's your exogenous opioids, remember, outside the body, like heroin, pain pills. They're not finding a home. Interesting. When they don't find a home, what happens? There is no increased stimulation of dopamine. So therefore, there's no high attached to it. Vivitrol on board is blocking it. And therefore, whether you use heroin or anything, you're not getting the effect you really want from it. And it's creating that protection for 30 days. That's why it's working. By the way, when I say pet the puppy, it still goes. The reason I bring that up, wait a minute, did I go too far? Yeah, okay. All right. Why do I say that? Because females ask about weight gain, guys ask about feelings. Feeling good feelings. And what you want to say, when I say pet the puppy and it's still going to feel good, they'll get it. Just tell them, I'm not going to speak more of it. I'm just saying that regular, everyday things that you do that creates good feelings are still going to create good feelings. Don't worry about it. It's not dealing with other parts of the system, your brain. All right. How does it work for alcohol dependence? Remember, I told you alcohol dependence grabs your natural endogenous opioids, floods your opiate receptor sites. Well, with Vivitrol on board right there, alchemists may not fully understand why it works, but they know it works. When Vivitrol's on board, for 30 days, those endogenous opioids, those natural opioids you have, don't flood your receptor sites, even if you drink alcohol. They don't flood the receptor sites. Therefore, you still get your normal stimulation of dopamine, but you don't get that good feeling. So that means you pet the puppy, it still feels good. All right. So what's the dosage? How does it work? All right. When you do Vivitrol, it's a once-a-month injection, like I said. Everybody gets the same 380 milligrams. You get the injection. It spikes initially a couple hours in, then it goes down. Then a couple days later, it spikes again, and then it starts coming back down again. So it's on board for the 30 days. All right. So you take Vivitrol, and it's on board for the 30 days. Now, again, the whole injection is done by healthcare professionals. Done by you, the professionals. You're preparing it. You're doing it. You have 2 needle sizes to choose from. This needle or that needle. That's it. You only use the needles that are actually in the packet that gets delivered to you. Now, the issue is there can be injection site reaction, right? There can be irritation. There can be rash. There can be some sort of reaction. So what's important about that is to understand that if a client starts complaining about some sort of feeling or reaction at the injection site, take them seriously. And the reason I say this is because in our business, we're so used to no longer listening to some of the complaints. Because let's say I'm your client, Lou is your client, and I'm always complaining, it's too hot in here, it's too cold in here, I don't like these chairs, I don't like the food you serve, I hate that I have to sit next to John, he stinks, and God, you got to give me with that therapist, that's the worst therapist in the world, blah, 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 blah. Why do you send me to that meeting? That's the worst meeting, all they want to do is blah, 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 they want to hug me. All right, so we're so used to complaining that then when a real complaint comes out, like I think the Vivitrol shot might have created an injection site reaction. I think I got the state of Texas growing on my butt. Don't look at it. Don't do anything like that. Send it to your medical team. If you're a counselor, I'm saying don't look at it. The medical team knows what they're looking for. I personally don't even know what a site reaction is a healthy site reaction is supposed to look like. So I'm not going to look at what an unhealthy one looks like. So if someone complains about an injection site reaction or feeling, send them to your medical team. We're a team, okay? So we're a team. That means everybody from the top down should know about this medication. That your client just got on this medication. So if there's any complaints or concerns, just send them to your medical process so you can evaluate it just to make sure that there is nothing going on that you have to address further. If there is, it'll get taken care of. Precipitated opiate withdrawal. What does that mean? That means, you want to make sure the person is not currently physiologically dependent on opioids. If they're still physiologically dependent on opioids, they're going to go into immediate precipitated withdrawal, and that's not healthy. That's not comfortable. Nobody wants to go into withdrawals immediately right here, right in front of you. It can be messy. It can be frustrating. It can be hurtful. So that's why a lot of programs drug test. Alkermes doesn't mandate it, doesn't say that you have to do it, but you'll find a lot of programs doing it. Remember, you want your client opioid free for 7 to 10 days. And when I talk opioids, I'm talking about regular street opioids, and I'm talking about pain pills. But fentanyl may take a little bit longer, but definitely buprenorphine and methadone will take longer. Buprenorphine and methadone is up to 2 weeks. So you'll have to understand that the medications that we have learned to prescribe, like buprenorphine and methadone, are a little bit more sticky icky. Now, that's not an Alkermes approved statement. They probably want me to say longer half-lives. But to our client, I just say a little bit more sticky icky because they understand it. It takes a little bit longer to leave the system. So it takes a little bit more skill on our part to get our clients to the point of being able to use Vivitrol. We don't want to bring it in too soon and try to rapidly do something that we don't have to rapidly do. We can get there, but we develop the program and we develop the support and we can get there. Safety information. Out of toxicity, words that a counselor should never have to learn, but I'm going to use them with you and I'm going to help you understand just a little bit, just enough to know this. That if they have allergic reactions or anything, if they have any kind of liver enzyme issues. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't have Hep C coming in, because many of our clients have Hep C coming in, they have HIV or AIDS coming in, and your medical team will know what levels to be looking for. They will communicate directly with Alkermes. Your rep will connect them directly with Alkermes so they know what levels they're kind of looking at. But we're talking about increased or lower levels, right? We're taling about changes in the levels. And hepatotoxicity, if your client starts having some sort of liver issues, of course, you're going to discontinue use. It's something that your medical team is going to be watching out for. Eosinophilic pneumonia is like an allergic type pneumonia. Now, I know we're in COVID-19 days. Hell, I'm in here in a room all by myself right now. So right now in COVID-19 days, if they even cough or sneeze, you're already removing them. But let's say when these days are over, and I hope they are over soon, and we're back in the same offices and rooms again, if an individual shows any type of signs of a pneumonia right after having the injection, of course, to your medical team, you want to be looking at that. Depression and suicidality. Hopefully, you're already having these conversations with clients, because remember, when people get clean, now they're living life on life's terms. They're dealing with things without their anesthesia, without their medication, without their self-medication. So they might already be suffering some issues that they didn't typically suffer, but now they've been given a medication, and we want to make sure that medication doesn't cause any kind of inappropriate thinking or dangerous thinking. So having conversations with your clients about depression, about suicidal ideations and thoughts. We want to make sure our clients are safe. If we're going to prescribe something, we definitely want to make sure that there's no reaction or effect from the medication that's causing them any kind of harmful effects, right? And remember, if they have a surgery coming up and they need a reversal from the blockade of Vivitrol, that can be done. But again, it should be done in a hospital with the surgeons that are there. So that if the CPR is needed, they can do that. They're monitoring their breathing, they're monitoring their heart rate, and they're in a safe environment. You don't go sit with your friend Billy and say, "Hey, Billy, watch me while I break the blockade." It doesn't work that way. Other safety information. Could be some allergic reactions. Remember, we don't know what we're allergic to until we take something, right? So we want to make sure that the person is not having some sort of allergic reaction to the medication. So be looking for that, talking about that, listening to your client soon after having the medication. They want to be warned of risks of being hypersensitive or anaphylaxis. You want to be watching for all that. And of course, if there's any kind of allergic reaction, you want to discontinue using it at all. It's an intramuscular injection. Some people have coagulation disorders they never even knew they had, and maybe they've never had a deep IM medication, and this is a deep IM. What if we had put the needle all the way in? So it could have been on our part. So you want to be listening and watching out for that. This is not going to do anything for alcohol withdrawal, because not only is it not opioid replacement therapy, it's not alcohol replacement therapy either. And we already know that alcohol withdrawal is very dangerous. So please continue to do what you do for alcohol withdrawal. Continue to refer them to whatever procedure you do for alcohol withdrawal. This does nothing for that. What it does, the difference is, though, if alcohol dependence is their only issue, right, and it's not opioid dependence, we don't have to wait the 7 to 10 days. Guess what? You can use this the very next day. All they got to do is be, off of alcohol. It's like making a good decision, like to get a tattoo sober. You know what I mean? So we don't have to wait that long process of the 7 to 10 days, because we're not waiting for an opioid to leave the system. With alcohol, we can do it the very next day, but it's not going to take the place of the medications that you may use for alcohol withdrawal and to keep the person safe from alcohol withdrawal. All right. So continue to go. New medication. This is so important. No medication-assisted treatment will address the physiological attachment a patient has formed to opioids. It won't break the psychological attachment a person has to opioids. It's not going to break the psychological attachment they have to the people, places, and things, the rituals, everything that goes along with it, the lifestyle. That's where counseling comes into play. What it is going to do is going to offer your client 30 days to be opioid free. What it is going to allow your client to do is to kind of be at peace and know I'm doing a treatment, even though I'm not having to do the treatment every day. I'm not making a decision every day. I'm still in treatment for these 30 days. A lot of people haven't been 30 days clean off opioids unless they went to jail or something like that. And so this allows them that opportunity. And that's why the therapy is so important. And we should always let them understand this is a comprehensive plan. It's not just medication alone. You don't have to do anything else. This is medication-assisted treatment. It's recognized as medication-assisted treatment from ASAM, SAMHSA, PCSS, and everybody. This is something very useful in your life. And now let's talk about how we know this to be. This is the efficacy. Here's the studies in treatment of opioid dependence. First of all, we have the pivotal study in opioid dependence. This is a 6-month double-blind trial with monthly injections. You have 124 placebo and 126 Vivitrol. Now, placebo, in case you don't know, placebo just means they got the injection. There's no medication in it. Hope and a prayer alone. That's it. Good luck. So you have the 124 placebo, 126 Vivitrol. There may be some study limitations. I'm going to read those to you real quickly. There's a brand new slide that they put out, and they want you to at least understand it. So I'm just going to run through it, not as fast as a car salesman would, but I'm going to say it just a little bit faster than I can read. Retention in a placebo group might have been reduced by recognition upon opioid use that one was on placebo, or among patients in the placebo group who had relapsed to regular opioid use by reluctance to return to the clinic and face a withdrawal reaction from a naloxone challenge test. The placebo group showed a substantial retention and response profile and a markedly higher rate of positive naloxone challenge tests. The high retention rate might have been influenced by inclusion criteria that patients have someone available to supervise attendance, provision of individual counseling, absence of alternative treatments in Russia, because this was done in Russia, and the promise of active Vivitrol treatment of all patients after 6 months. And the subsequent open label extension safety study analysis of group central tendencies may not reflect the experience of individual patients, meaning it may not work for everybody, but at least it's an option for everybody. Now let's get into it. Vivitrol counseling, more patients achieved complete abstinence versus placebo. So in the placebo group, we had 23% of the people with complete abstinence. In the Vivitrol group, we had 36% of the people with complete abstinence. So in what you're looking for between placebo, what we're looking for is the difference between placebo and actual medication use, right? The numbers being different because hope and a prayer alone, 23%, and then increase with the medication up to 36%, I'm sorry. Secondary endpoint. Craving. Now here is where I was yelling on the radio. This is the slide that just had me blown away. So I'm going to stay on this for a second. Why? Because cravings are a big deal. Cravings are what we talk about in groups. I don't know how many times, right? We talk about people, places, and things, and triggers, and all these things. Why? Because cravings are exactly that. Some of you are late to work today because you got in line at Starbucks and you were just craving that coffee and you just had to get it regardless of how long the line was, and so you were late to work. Some of you, you say I want to lose weight, and then somebody brings chocolate chip cookies in the office, and you eat a chocolate chip cookie. Cravings are a big deal, and you're not even addicts, and cravings are a big deal. So let's talk about this. In this study, you had 124 placebo, 126 Vivitrol. So you look at the placebo group; they come out of this clean time, right? They come out of detox, and they get this injection of the placebo, and their cravings initially spike when they come out. And then they get another injection and it goes down. And they get another injection and it stays stabilized. Then they get another injection. 24 weeks later, their cravings are actually higher than they began with. So placebo did nothing for injections. That's the blue line. Did nothing for cravings. Now the Vivitrol group. People got Vivitrol, cravings went down. Come out of detox. Cravings went down. Got another shot. Lower again. Got another shot. Lower again. Kept getting shots. Stabilized. 24 weeks later, a 55% decrease in cravings. 55% decrease in cravings. So pause. Now, I don't know. I may have gotten sober the Johnny Cash method. Maybe it was different. I was told to go just stand in the corner. I was told, put the cotton out of your ears, stick them in your mouth. I was told all kinds of things. I was told that there are promises. I was told keep coming back. I was told a lot of things, and we still tell people that. But now we have research that can actually show a 55% decrease in cravings. Cravings that a 5% decrease in a craving could have changed a person from being in prison to not being in prison. A 5% decrease in cravings could change a person from being overdosed into being alive. Just a 5% decrease in cravings. And I'm not trying to over dramatize and saying that people, if they had this medication, that stuff is not going to happen to them. But at least we have research that at least supports that it's possible. And here's the last thing. I want you to think about this person, because you know this person exists. And if you're in this business long enough, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a person right now here in South Carolina, right here in Latta, South Carolina, at a motel, and they've already bought the dope, and it's sitting right there in front of them. They bought the dope, it's sitting right there in front of them. They want to use it so bad, they're craving it so bad, but they haven't used it yet. They're thinking about you. They're thinking about their wife or their husband. They're thinking about the judge. They're thinking about their kids. They're thinking about everything. They're thinking about all the promises they made. They're trying really hard not to use, man. They're trying really hard not to use that dope that's on that counter, man. And they're thinking, I got to not use that. Now, maybe they went to a treatment program that had yoga. So maybe they're doing downward facing dog and maybe decreasing some cravings. I don't know. I've never seen the research on the decrease the cravings with yoga, but yet every treatment program has yoga. Every client knows that yoga is possible. Well, maybe they went to a treatment center that had equine therapy. This is not to put down equine therapy. I just want you to take a ride with me for a second. Maybe they went to a treatment program that had equine therapy, so they learned how to deal with their trauma by petting a horse and playing with horses and all that. But is the horse there in the hotel room, in the motel room? No. The dope's on the counter right there in the hotel room, motel room, and they're craving it and they're wanting it. For that individual in that motel room, what do you think the percentage of reduction in craving would help save their life? And that person can go home and make that phone call, because they're thinking about calling you right now. They want to make that call. They promise you. They want to call you, but it's hard to pick up that phone. It's hard to pick up that phone. So it's for those people. I kept thinking about those people in my head when I saw 55% decrease in cravings. Because again, I'm not saying that everybody's going to have 55% decrease in cravings, but at least that it's possible. Helps me think about that person when they're all alone and they're feeling all alone. That if Vivitrol's on board, just maybe. Little study in opioid dependence secondary endpoint. Just treated with Vivitrol and counseling were less likely to relapse to physical dependence. Less likely to relapse to physical dependence. 14% of them in the placebo group relapsed to physical dependence. 0.8% relapsed to physical dependence that was in the Vivitrol group. And listen, if you've ever taken statistical methods, stat methods, you learn that N equals 1 means one person. N equals 1. And when I went and did the research, I found that person didn't get the medication for 2 months in a row and stayed in the research project. This is how they got indicated for the prevention of relapse to physical dependence. Another secondary endpoint, the median of the Vivitrol group with psychosocial support completed 100% of the study. So what do I think about when I hear 100% of the study? I think AMAs, against medical advice. How many people leave treatment early? How many people don't stick around long enough? Isn't that what they were telling me? Keep coming back, keep coming back. You wait for the miracle to happen, right? Stay around long enough. Well, the placebo group stayed in treatment 96 days. That's a good amount of time. I wish an insurance company would pay 96 days for people to stay in treatment. Maybe we can get somewhere. But the Vivitrol group, over 168 days. Imagine having over 168 days with a client. Imagine you, if you're the one that's been in treatment, imagine you being offered over 168 days of treatment. Now, repetition is part of our deal, right? It's part of the deal. That's why we hear the same thing over and over again. And if you want to know what I mean by that, there's things that I've said to clients in the first week of knowing them that they didn't hear me, but they left. 3 months later, they go to that one meeting that they hear it. They come back and go, oh, it was life-changing. This person said this. And I'm thinking to myself, I said that 3 months ago. Repetition is key. In our business, repetition is key. But what's real horrible is on a Friday, when a person says, I really want to leave programming, and you're saying, please don't, please don't, please don't. And you have a conversation with them, you contract with them to stay, you go home, you come back on Monday, and they left. So when I see that the median of the Vivitrol group completed 100% of the study, I think of, wow, retention. Client retention is important for us to get somewhere. Now, there can be some adverse reactions with this medication and other medications. So you want to be able to get known. You want to start understanding what some of these things might be. We already talked about injection site reaction can happen, nasopharyngitis, influenza, insomnia, hypertension, things like that. Well, in this study, when people went through the study, 2% of the opioid-dependent people that were treated with Vivitrol quit the research because of an adverse reaction. 2% of the people that had the placebo also quit because of adverse reactions. I'm not making any judgments on that. I'm just simply reporting what is available. This slide right here is very important. What I want you to do, I want you to take a picture of this slide. Don't ask me questions. Just please take a picture of this slide. This is an important slide. I want you to seriously, I know you think I'm joking, screenshot it or take a picture of it, but it's real important, and you'll understand in a second why. Why? Because this slide says vivitrolhcp.com, vivitrolhcp.com. So for those of you that didn't listen about the picture, can you at least write down vivitrolhcp.com, please? Because there's good information at vivitrolhcp.com. A lot of good resources there that's going to help you along with yourself or with your clients or whatever. But more importantly, these two researches are available. And in these two researches, this is where you can read about these two researches. You're going to read the comparison of Vivitrol against Suboxone. Vivitrol versus Suboxone. Are you hearing me? Vivitrol versus Suboxone. This research isn't done by the people who make Vivitrol. This research wasn't done by the people who make Suboxone. This research was FDA approved. The XBOT study and the TANM study. Both of these researchers, let there be light. You see what's happening here? You see what's happening? I don't know if you can see what's happening here. The lights are going on and off. It's like I must be preaching gospel or something in here. The lights are going on and off. Listen to what I'm telling you. Take a picture of the slide deck. You're going to learn about the XBOT study. You're going to learn about the TANM study, where they take the comparison between Vivitrol and Suboxone. Now, because they only give me one slide, I can't really get into it. That's why I'm telling you to read it. That's why I'm telling you to go to that website. But here, I'm going to give you a couple of bullet points that maybe can help you along the way, help encourage you to go read it. You may be asking yourself, Louis, you talked about cravings. You said that was real important to you, and it's important to our clients as well. It's important to us. Is there a difference between people that take Vivitrol and Suboxone when it comes to cravings? And I'm going to go, no, read the research. You might say, is there a difference in retention, staying in treatment longer, the AMAs that you were talking about, whether they take Vivitrol, they take Suboxone? No, go look at the research. You may ask yourself, what about, is there a difference in testing positive for an opioid between the people that take Vivitrol and take Suboxone? No, go read the research. And finally, you may ask yourself, is there a difference between fatal overdoses? Are there more fatal overdoses if a person is on Vivitrol or Suboxone? No. Don't believe the hype. Go read the research. Remember, you are the one that's going to become a professional and understand this medication and how to use it, not the street, not the other people. Go read the research. The XBOT study, TANM study, both FDA-approved research. You're going to learn a lot. VivitrolHCP.com. Take a picture. Last chance. Here goes. Lost it. Hopefully, VivitrolHCP.com. Anyway, one last study, the alcohol dependence. Why is the alcohol dependence study last? I do not know. I'll tell you this. Alcohol-dependent people have been getting ignored since cocaine addicts came in the 80s. I don't know why. They're not ignored by Vivitrol. It's just my joke. But the point is that alcohol-dependent people, you know how they've been sitting in those groups, and the cocaine people like me came in, and we started talking real fast, and they go, oh, man, I just drink beer. Why am I in this group? Why don't you go to the other group? And then we left, and then came all the opioid-dependent people, and now everything's opioids, and that person's sitting in a group, oh, I just drink beer. Why am I in here? I don't do heroin. Anyway, let's talk about the pivotal study in alcohol dependence, because yes, Vivitrol is used for alcohol dependence. 6-month double-blind trial with monthly injections, 209 placebo, 208 Vivitrol. What happened? All right. We had study limitations as well, and they want me to read these to you, so here you go. Here we go. The study was not designed to answer whether naltrexone may or may not work for women. The women who participated may not be representative of women with alcohol dependence in the general population, and the number of women studied was small. Men and women in the study differed in a number of important variables, including the prevalence of smoking and antidepressant use, weight, and commitment to abstinence. The men and women in the sample may have been differed on other variables that may positively influence naltrexone response, but were not asserted in the study, such as family history of alcoholism. Remember, I told you how important genetics are. Clinical trials may enroll patients with a great degree of motivation for change than is seen among patients who are treated in traditional outpatient studies. Remember, a lot of us see clients that don't really want the help that we're trying to offer them. Although treatment attendance was relatively high in the study, dropouts reduced the extent in which the general findings in this of those with alcohol dependence. Drinking data for dropouts were not obtained once they left the study, so it's not known how these drinking outcomes would have affected the results in the long term. Analysis of group tendencies may not reflect the experience of individual patients. But what happened? There's a pivotal study in alcohol dependence. Patients treated with Vivitrol, 380 milligrams, remember? 25% fewer heavy drinking days. Now, mind you, the heavy drinking was assigned a self-report of 5 or more standard drinks consumed on a given day for male patients and 4 more drinks for female patients. And we saw a 25% decrease in fewer heavy drinking days, which is great, right? Now, there's a little subset of people, and that's a small subset. We can't think too much of it. It's enough to talk about. There's a subset of people, the small little group of people that are already clean before getting on the medication. So remember, the general is 25% fewer heavy drinking days. And now we look at this little subset, and by the way, these people were drinking heavily 15.2 days out of the month, so that half the month. So then we have this little subset of people that came in already clean. They got it, and we saw only 2.5 days of heavy drinking with the placebo patients, but only 0.2 days of heavy drinking with the Vivitrol. And this is how it got its indication for alcohol dependence. So please understand, not just opioid dependent people, this can be used for alcohol dependent people. What are some adverse reactions? Remember, injection site reactions, nausea, vomiting. Get used to some of these just so you can watch out for the depression or something like that. We had 9% of the people that were on Vivitrol discontinue the study because of adverse reactions. We had 7% of the people on placebo that quit because of adverse reactions. And here's a list of a few more. Again, injection site rash, headache, dizziness, things like this. But you want to become aware of some of the things. Everybody's going to have their own things that they get used to hearing. Last thing, usage and administration. This is like a summary of everything. Remember, to the healthcare professional, or if you're watching this and you're not the healthcare professional, it gets prepared by the healthcare professional. The recommendation is 380 milligrams every 4 weeks. If you miss a week, come back, get the injection. You don't have to reoffend. You don't have to get high again. You don't have to get drunk again. You don't have to do any of that again. Remember, there's no weaning off period. There's no physical dependence. It's not addicting. So if you miss a dose, just come in as soon as you can. It's administered in the deep IM in the butt. It's not intravenously or subcutaneously. Only use the needles that are in the carton. That's it. Oral naltrexone is not required to initiate it. There are a lot of people that do use oral naltrexone first just to see if you're allergic to it or not, but it's not a requirement. There's no systematic collected data that specifically addresses the switch from oral naltrexone to Vivitrol in the first place, or switching from methadone to buprenorphine. We just know that you must wait at least 2 weeks to switch from methadone to buprenorphine. These are things that people out there have learned to do that, learn how to do this switch or change. So if you're out there, you're taking methadone, or if you're treating people with methadone, just know it can be done, but they're not going to give you how it's done. These are things that are up to you as the physician, up to the prescriber. Same thing with buprenorphine. You can't have injection site reactions, so please make sure to understand that. Make sure your clients understand that. You can't have coagulation disorders. Make sure that you put the injection in there correctly and you don't do it incorrectly. Patients should be alerted that they may be more sensitive to opioids, even at lower doses. They may not feel it. So can you be of help? You got to talk to your client. You got to teach your client. You got to talk about it. You got to tell them about it. They're not learning from the street. There's no street value tests. Everybody out there knows that there's a frog running around somewhere or hopping around somewhere that if you lick it, you can get high from it. Everybody knows that. And there wasn't even social media back in the day when I learned that. But there's no understanding of Vivitrol. More people know about the frog than they know about Vivitrol. Take a test in your groups and you'll see what I'm talking about. You have to talk about it. You have to work with your clients, let them understand it. If you think money's an issue, look, there's a Vivitrol copay savings program. 90% of the insured patients, they qualify for this program, pay no out-of-pocket expenses for Vivitrol. It's almost like free all over the place. You have a $500-month copay that Vivitrol pays. I don't know what South Carolina does, but I'm sure that your local rep can tell you, or if you're in another state, can tell you what is available in your state. I know in Florida, Medicaid pays for it, and most of the insurances do as well. Recovery is a journey. It could be a long journey. This is just a compliment to everything you're doing. Please understand that this is an option for you, and now is a time where you can ask whatever questions you want. I apologize if there were moments in this where you could not understand or couldn't hear what I was saying, but if you can't hear me, let's talk about it. Questions? Hopefully they can still hear me even with the transformer though.
I think some of them can, because we can hear you on our end. Yeah.
Good. I heard we had some technical difficulties here as far as transformer being blown, but how'd it go for you guys? Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, we open it up right now for anybody that got
Perfect.
any questions. Please post your questions now. Mr. Delgado, I'm always in awe whenever you talk about Vivitrol and you talk about the treatment process. This has been great information for our clinical staff, great information for our MAT providers, and for our partners, our Deotis partners who's tuning in right now watching this. So this has been great information. And,
Thank you.
You really gave us some more insight on Vivitrol. So we really appreciate
Thank you.
this. Not to mention you driving over 5 to 6 hours just to come have this conversation and to do this podcast with
Yes,
us.
sir.
We feel special. We feel honored by that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
So
Oh yeah.
So I have a question. So you said earlier in the slide, you said it a few times, and I picked up on it. An individual must be detox for 7 to 10 days before they can be prescribed Vivitrol, or did I misunderstand that?
No, that's exactly correct. That's probably the most important thing to get out of, as a healthcare professional, to know that you should always structure your programming to help the client get through that week. You know what I mean? That week to 10 days, because that's where a lot of us fall short. A lot of treatment programs want to put all that on the client. Oh, you got to get 7 to 10 days. No, we got to get there. We can help structure your program, whether that means you come every day to groups, whatever that is. I don't care. But whether you go to meetings every day, you go to groups every day, but we can get you to that 7 to 10 days. And if we do that, the dependence part is done. And remember, there's two parts to addiction, right? You have the psychological addiction, and you get that physical dependence. Imagine being able to kill 50% of the dragon. Let's slay 50% of the dragon instead of trying to tell all clients that they got to always have to fight 100% of the dragon. No, 100% of the dragon is not what you have to fight for the rest of your life. You only have to fight 50% of the dragon the rest of your life until they find a cure, and I'm still hopeful they will.
Okay, because you answered the second part of my question already. I'll say for someone that's going through addiction, that 7 to 10 days could be hard. And I was going to ask you what you recommend. And you recommend that team approach, like you said, group, or even if possible, and it's available, inpatient.
Oh, the easiest way to do it, yeah. Yes. Detox, being in an inpatient facility, a detox facility, is probably the best structured environment you can have to get to that 7 to 10 days. Well, if you have that available to you, take it.
Yes. As you see on the screen, there's another question from one of our watchers that says, "Now, what happens when a person on Vivitrol?"
Yeah, do you want me to answer?
Other things? Yeah, go ahead. Yes, sir.
Well, okay, so there's no contraindication, meaning benzos and Vivitrol aren't going to put you in a life-threatening situation. Benzos all by themselves can put you in a life-threatening situation. So I would recommend to all patients or all clients or any persons that's going to take Vivitrol if you're going to take this serious, and you're going to take it to the point and say, look, I want some help, and you get to the point where you actually get help by getting on Vivitrol, I would suggest you just continue all substance use. Now, if you're taking benzodiazepines because your physician has put you on that and they want you to be on that, that's on them. I'm not gonna talk negatively about any physician that chooses to do that, but at least there's no negative reaction between the two medications. That's what's important to know. And yes, Evangelist Denise Cooper, counseling is key. There's nothing can beat the relationships we build therapeutically with people. You will remember those people for the rest of your life. I remember everyone I got clean and sober with forever.
Well, like they froze. So we apologize, having some technical difficulty in that location. Looks like they're froze. So let's see if we can get them back. In the meantime, if you want more information on Vivitrol or our CareSouth Carolina MAT program, you can reach us at www.caresouth-carolina.com, www.caresouth-carolina.com. And more information on Vivitrol is vivitrolhcp.com, vivitrolhcp.com. So we give a few minutes to see if they can get back on. We're having some issues over in that area. I think a transformer blew. So we give a few minutes to see if they can get back on. If not, we'll do our best to answer any other questions that you have in the chat, and reply to your questions. Again, more information can be found on our Facebook page, as well as our website at www.caresouth-carolina.com, www.carolina.com. And you can also reach out to some of our community partners, our day oldest agencies. Those are drug and alcohol agency partners, Trinity Behavior Care, as well as the Alpha Center and Rubicon Family Counseling Center there in Hartsville. Each one of them do a great job in working with us and working together to um, for the good of the um, patients, and they do a really great job in collaboration and making sure that the patient has all of the support and care that they need um, to get back on track. So you want more, like I said, more information from either us here at Care South Carolina, or as well as some of our partners. If you're in the Hartsville, Darling County area, you can reach out to Rubicon Family Counseling Center. If you're in the Marlboro County, Chesterfield County area, you have Chesterfield County area, you have Alpha Center. In the Marlboro County area and Dillon County area, you can reach out to Trinity Behavior Care. Right. All right. But this was definitely a great um, presentation today, and it looks like they're trying to get back on. We're gonna give them a couple more minutes because I'm sure there's more questions out there. But it's definitely some great information that was put out by Mr. Delgado. Like I said, he's over 29 years of experience in the addiction and recovery field. He's definitely one of the foremost experts here in the country. Again, he's known as the dope doctor, living in Florida, but he travels all over the country doing these types of presentations in order to get the information out for individuals, and families can make great decisions on recovery and treatment. All right. So again, more information, www.caresouth-carolina.com. And in the meantime, also, if you're looking for a medical home, contact us at Care South Carolina. Again, on our webpage that I gave earlier, and we'll be able. We have a variety of services here at Care South Carolina. Everything from primary care to pediatrics, pharmacy. We also have chiropractic services as well as behavioral health counseling, our MAT program, school-based programs such as our dental program. We also have community dental program, school-based, again, going to schools. And also right now we're doing COVID testing. You will see these new vans that we have going around. They're called Mobies. They're mobile units that we use to provide community COVID-19 testing. And again, that COVID-19 testing is not is available in right now 4 or 5 counties: Marlboro, Chesterfield, Dillon, and Darlington counties. We're out 5 days a week in various locations. You can look at our calendar at www.caresouth-carolina.com for more information on location on where we will be. The COVID testing is at no cost to you, no out-of-pocket cost to you, the patient. So look us up. All right. All right. So we're going to go ahead and end today. Like I said, it was a wonderful and dynamic presentation by Mr. Delgado today. And again, we thank you for coming on. We thank you for being a part of our presentation today. And if you have any questions, you continue to put them in the chat box, and we'll do our best to get back to you as soon as we can. Okay. All right. Again, have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. And if you need more information about Care South Carolina, you can again hit us on our Facebook page. Or also you can go to the website at www.caresouth-carolina.com. Like we got many programs we can assist you with, signing up for SNAP benefits, Medicaid, ACA. Just reach out to us if you need a medical home. All right. Have a wonderful weekend. I'm out.